Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt and this is my 2021 BMW M340i. I've had it for 7 months now. I was going to shoot a 6-month update like a normal person, but I've literally just not had a chance to do so. But we're going to hit the 7-month update here because it's basically the same information. We're going to cover what I've done to this thing, what I'm going to do to this thing, and then we're going to do a couple little small quirks and walkarounds of interesting things that I've noticed in my first 7 months with the car. So I've broken this up into a couple different categories. As a reminder, I bought this thing on January 18th of this year, 2024. It was about 2 days after my 30th birthday. So it was a little bit of a belated birthday present to me, and it's awesome. I absolutely have loved my first 7 months with the car. I bought it at about 33,000 miles. It currently is sitting 7 months later at about 37,700. So just under about 5,000 miles I put on it in those months. And in those months, it's done a number of different things. It's functioned as a daily driver, it's eaten up loads of highway miles and gotten incredible fuel economy, which we'll talk about that later. It's been to the track multiple times and been beat the snot out of. It's been off-roading, technically, and it's been great. Which leads me then to how I feel about the car. And like I just said, it has been kind of the perfect balance. And that's really what I was going for when I wanted something like this. I thought the M5 might be something that was a little bit more than I wanted to bite off, but this M340 is, I still probably maintain to this day, the perfect do-everything car. And that leads me to some of the modifications that I've made to the car. Now, the first thing was to fix the sound. When I bought the car, it was really fast. It was it's definitely the fastest car that I've ever owned, but I didn't have the sound to accompany it. It just had the stock OE exhaust. It wasn't the M Performance exhaust. It was just, it was fine. It was kind of sedate and kind of quiet though. And you guys that follow the channel will know I'm about two things: snap and sound. So I wanted a little bit more drama, a little bit more theater out of that right pedal when I got into it. So went to AWE and they got me their Touring non-resonated exhaust. And I've done a number of videos featuring the exhaust on the channel. I've got a whole dedicated video. You can check that out in the description or in a banner or whatever here, but it sounds incredible now. It's super loud on startup, it snarls, and then above 3,000 RPM in Sport Plus, you come off throttle, especially if you've got turbo spooled, and it's just pop, 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 pops everywhere. There's so much theater, it's so much drama. It is exactly what I was looking for from the exhaust. But I'm gonna make a change. It sounds dramatic, right? But I'm gonna make the change, and what I'm gonna do is just get the resonator kit, or the resonator conversion kit from AWE and put it on here. And it's for a couple reasons that are entirely personal. It has nothing to do with the exhaust. It is, I think, the best sounding M340 that I've ever heard, but I do want to get that resonator conversion kit because of a couple personal reasons. Like one, for what I do, I have to get up early and go to the airport very early in the morning, and when I start the car, it does bellow and rattle the house a little bit while my wife is trying to sleep, and that's just not really cool. The other reason is when I'm not doing Downshift videos, I work as a freelance producer sometimes, and sometimes these photo shoots and video shoots take me to places where it's not exactly appropriate to have this loud screaming car in the parking lot. I've got like art gallery stuff, like very like kind of hoity-toity, like you wouldn't want to bring a Mustang GT to a funeral, right? Like that sort of energy. So having something a little bit more sedate, a little bit more under the radar, I think just fits into my personal situation. Again, it has nothing to do with the actual tone of the exhaust. I love it, it's perfect, but for my unique situation, I just need something a little bit more toned down. Did you want me to move?
Oh, no, I'm going over here.
Oh, okay, no worries, no worries. Which leads me then to my second major modification, and that was the tires. I've mentioned it a couple times on the channel here, but the Kumho Exta PS91s is what Kumho provided me because I wanted to have something that was more aggressive, that was sporty oriented and summer oriented for the summer. And Paulo's over here bragging about, oh, I've got a tune on my G70. It's gonna be so much faster than your M340. Well, I couldn't let that slide, obviously. I'm not gonna tune the car. Just, I don't really feel like I need to, but I can improve the grip level, which I have done. These tires took like 3 seconds off of my lap time. And on a 60-second track, on a 60-second lap, it took 3 seconds off from the Bridgestone All Seasons. Now, obviously that's going from an all-season tire to a performance tire, but still, that's a huge performance delta. They're great. They've held up really, really well. I love the little race flag details that you get in the sidewall and in the tread pattern. I really do like them. Now, the other thing that I really like, and my wife really likes, is the fact that going from the Bridgestones, they were run flats, to the Kumos here, these are so much more comfortable. The ride harshness is gone. It's still stiff, but the harshness is gone. It doesn't feel crashy anymore. It feels stiff and taut and put together, but it doesn't ever feel like crashy or thuddy or thunky in the way that it did on the Bridgestone. So these tires have been fantastic. They're quiet on the highway, I get great fuel economy, and I've got great performance. So there's balance everywhere from a performance standpoint and a fuel economy and comfort standpoint. So it's a great tire as far as I'm concerned. Now that being said, there's a couple modifications that I haven't made yet. Like for one, when I debuted the car, there's a few things wrong with it. Like for one, the front splitter is super chewed up. I haven't done anything about that. I probably will in the next like week or 2 weeks, just because I've not had any time. Like once April hit, I just got crazy busy. And then also I haven't fixed the tint on the back driver's side window. So those things will get fixed in the next month or two, but I've just been busy. So those will get fixed and probably replaced with basically the same looking parts. I'll probably go with the AKA Motorsports because they basically make this front splitter, and instead of the Adro kit, which is like $700 to $1,000, it's like 120 bucks. So that's what I'm gonna do there. And then the tint I'm gonna get done. I've also was just waxing the car this weekend, and there's a bunch of rock chips, which I hate, obviously. So I am thinking about getting those filled and fixed, and then PPFing the car. This dude is hitting golf balls towards me. And then just touching on some of the experiences that I mentioned before. This has been on track at least 5 times. On the old tires, it's been on the track at least, I think, twice. And then on the new tires here now, it's been on the track at least 3 times. And it's been great. Again, super balanced, very quick. The thing that I noticed right away with the Bridgestones, the all seasons, was very tire limited. More than anything, the tires complained on entry into the first corner. It was a sloppy mess, to be honest, and Paulo will agree with you. But when I put these Kumos on, these Exta PS91s, it's not grip limited per se. You get your braking done, and that's really the thing that limits the car now. I think it is the brakes. So much so that when I went to have my oil change done, which we'll talk about in a minute, I asked them to make sure that they checked the brakes, and they said, yeah, it looks fine. So to get more lap time out of the car, to get under that 60-second mark on our track, brakes are really the thing. But in terms of grip and tread, maybe a little bit more, maybe like a 245 on the back like you would get from the non-X-Drive cars. That would probably help. But again, then I'd be making fuel economy penalties. I'm probably not going to track the car too much more. And as it stands, it is a good balance. It does everything, and I need it to do everything. So going with bigger, more aggressive tires is gonna have to make me make compromises in places that I don't really feel like I need to make. But yeah, absolutely love the tires. The balance of the car is fabulous on track, which then leads me to a much less sexy experience, and that's just kind of the day-to-day driving. And we've covered this a lot on the channel as well. The ride is a bit stiff. I don't have the adaptive suspension. I do agree with the forums that is kind of a must if you want to have like a true luxury car experience. This airs more on the side of performance car. Like when we spent our week with this and the M3 Comp, the M3 Comp rode better than my car, even with the Kumos on now. It's just the adaptive suspension. It's oversprung, it's just a bit stiff, the steering's a bit heavy, and then the seats don't breathe. I don't have the Vernasca, I have the Sensatec. It's like a vinyl, it doesn't breathe super well. I don't have cooled seats. You can't get cooled seats on a 3 Series. So those are really my only complaints. Other than that, it's been fine. Even with the stiffness and the harshness that this car goes down the road with, nothing has rattled loose. There's been no creaks, there's been no rattles, nothing has shown up, which is pretty great. And then I did joke at the beginning of the video that I did take this thing off-road. I did technically on what I guess you could consider like a rally type road. But it was just kind of fun. I just wanted to see how it would do. And it got me thinking, you see all these Safari 911 builds online, And I'm just thinking to myself, this would make an incredible safari build. Jack the suspension up about 3 inches, throw some more knobbly tires on this thing, put some skid plating underneath. You have X-Drive. The gearbox is great. It's got power. You can throw a rack on top. This would be an awesome safari build. I kind of want to do it. So leave it down in the comments if you think I should do it. And leave it down in the comments if you think I should name it the M340, because trees, or the M3 Forest. Leave it down in the comments. And then real world MPG, I think the EPA rates this car at about 25 MPG combined, which is very underselling it, or maybe I just drive it pretty much like a grandpa. I think Paulo would argue that I drive a little bit like a grandpa just because I have at least one new car to drive each week. I get to drive cars on the track, so I kind of scratch that itch in other places. I don't really beat on my daily car. But I have not been seeing 25 mpg. Over the last 1,000 miles, I've averaged over 30 mpg on just highway stuff. Like when I do go up to the lake and the cottage, like 35 to 37 mpg, depending on which way the wind is blowing. So this thing is just crazy efficient. 2021 was the first year that they added the mild hybrid. You could tell with a little purple cord in there. But they didn't really advertise it until the LCI in 2023. So I'm blown away by the real world fuel efficiency that you get here with this B58 and the M340. And then in terms of practicality, I did mention earlier that this is the perfect balanced car. I need it to do everything and it does do everything. So in terms of practicality, it's been bulletproof. I have a real genuine back seat that I've put adults in. I took my friend Dan and his coworker to the track, and we did laps with people in the back seat of the car, and it was fine. You feel it under braking, but other than that, it was fine. So the real world back seat for adults is definitely there. Plus, I use this thing for photo shoots, video shoots. I have to move props around and other camera gear, and when I'm producing, I've got to go get all sorts of things, and it all fits in the trunk. I can fold the seats down and I have a really long area. It just doesn't miss. Which then leads me to the point that I know you're all wanting me to talk about, and it's reliability. I know this is the big thing whenever we compare this to the Lexus IS 500, or I even did a 330 comparison against an IS 350. It's, oh, the BMW's junk, it's gonna break, and warranty, blah, blah, blah. I've had it for 7 months. That's not that long, and I haven't put that many miles on it, but it hasn't had a problem. One thing happened, and I think I did it, the sunroof. So the shade works fine. The sunroof vents, but when you open it, it'll open, and then when you close it, it'll close mostly, and then pop back open. You can hear it rattling away over every little bump. Okay, I've identified and diagnosed the problem. This piece here, as you can see, is loose. It's just rattling around on this side. So when it goes to vent, it's not a problem because it just kind of comes back down on this. But when you open it, I'm sure it's getting caught on stuff. So I'm gonna see if I can fix it myself, if it just needs to be tightened, or if it's broken. Okay, so I've fixed, at least it seems, I have fixed the sunroof. So you can see it's kind of supposed to be resting right about here. So I literally just repositioned this side, which is the side that came loose. And I drove back from the grocery store. It's only like 5 miles, but it didn't rattle. I tried it up, vented, and closed. I'm a little scared to put it back because it could break again, but maybe we do that right now actually. Real world test. Okay. Do I go further? No way. I am the Sunroof Whisperer. I was able to find the problem, diagnose it myself, fix it myself. I brought it back in then to my friends at IA, or International BMW, just to make sure that the real techs took a look at it and see that it was okay. They checked it out for free. It was fine. I had fixed the problem. There's been nothing with the powertrain, nothing with brakes, suspension. There's been no problems. And of course I'll keep the car, and we'll do another year update, but it's been bulletproof so far, and that's kind of what we hear from the forums for B58 owners. These, especially in stock form, if you're not gonna tune it, you're not gonna push it, you're not gonna beat on it, you just let it warm up and you do oil changes and you service it regularly, just maintain your car by the service schedule, these cars are pretty bulletproof. That's been my experience so far, but again, we'll do another video at a year. And then I do have to talk about costs. I forgot to update it on my little script here, so I'll put a screenshot with the final numbers and like what it all went to, but it's been, since nothing's gone wrong and it still, you know, was under warranty and that sunroof thing got checked out under warranty, it hasn't really cost me that much. But those are really all the topics that I could think of to cover at the 7-month update here. But I do want to walk you guys around and show you some of the weird little quirks that I've noticed in my first 7 months with the car. So let's do that. This first thing really stresses me out. So when you go into the car, you turn it on. All the lights go off. The check engine light, now I just had the car going, so it's not doing it. But if you cold start it, the check engine light like waits for a little bit before it turns off. And it just stresses me out every time. Now this other thing may not show up this way because it's only after it sits for a while. Yeah, okay, so I don't have time to let this sit for a week just to get this B-roll clip, but every once in a while after the car is sat for like a week or more, instead of an M340 showing up, it'll be like a base X5. It'll still say everything else normal and correct, but that image of that sedan right there turns up as a base X5, which is weird. When I first bought the car, you can adjust this, so instead of having like an RPM gauge, you can have a power reserve gauge. So how much power you have left to deploy. So if you're like idling, you have 100%. And this is how the car was delivered to me with the power reserve gauge. So I quickly switched it to revs because that's what makes sense in my mind. But just like a Rolls Royce, you could have a power reserve gauge in your M340. And this is a small thing that annoys me quite a bit because I don't just like stay in sport mode most of the time. I'm usually cruising around in eco or comfort, and then when I want to have a little bit of fun, I go into sport. But watch how long, and maybe this is something you can change, but watch how long the transition stays. I'm gonna hit sport, and it's gonna stay on this screen for like way too long. Way too long! Now, of course, you can do this and then shift the wheel back over, your iDrive wheel, to then get back, but like, what are you doing? Why? You see all these buttons here on your center stack. Of course, they're not lit up right now, but at night they do light up as orange. But this one's interesting, your climate screen. This goes from white to orange at night too, in classic BMW fashion. And speaking of things that change colors, look at the little icon here when I go and switch to eco. Now everything is blue. Then I go to sport. It's back to orange. Now! And comfort, also orange. So comfort and sport are the same, but eco is blue. And like I said, this thing is practical. So you open up the trunk. I've got my big film bag in here. I've got a lawn chair in here. I can only fold the seats from the trunk though. You fold them there. If you actually go in to the cabin, there's nowhere to fold the seats, which is just kind of weird. Sorry for the mud in here. Again, off-roading day / track day. But yeah, the only place that you can fold the seats is from the trunk. Usually I see it the other way around where you can't fold it from the trunk, you can only fold it from the back, but this is the inverse. You also go to apps. I don't know if somebody downloaded this or what, but I do have the lap timer, which is really cool. Thought you'd only get this in like full M cars, but I do have it and it was working the other day. And you go into car, vehicle, whoop, not that. You go into car, driving information, sport displays, and you've got telemetry, boost pressure, horsepower, torque readout, engine temp. You've got a G meter in here. And even in my cluster, I usually leave it on this screen because I like to see the horsepower and torque readout as it comes in live. But you also, on the other hand, have an energy flow screen, which is one of the first reasons that I found out that I have the mild hybrid, because it's charging up that battery. And then of course the purple cord underneath the hood. I also have the uneven road surface detector, which will show in my head-up display if I'm approaching, well basically it's just a train tracks reminder. If you're getting close to train tracks, it's gonna warn you. Good news, my engine oil level is okay. This also has the dynamic light thing that we've seen in the new M2, where hopefully you can see it. It's gonna flash red to warn people behind me that my door is open and not to rip my door off. Another thing that's kind of annoying is the braking is not linear, because sometimes you're getting regen and sometimes you're not. And it won't start with regen, but you can see when it starts to come in here and it's regenning, then the braking will get more aggressive. If you're driving it a little bit more spiritedly, you're not gonna notice it. It's mostly when you're coming to like a really, really slow and gradual stop that you're like, why am I not getting any brake bite? Why am I not getting it? And now I have all of it. because it's regenning now. The other thing is this heated steering wheel button. I love that it's here. It makes so much sense that it's here, but I wish there was like a light on it that indicated it was on. Otherwise, you have to read this. And the only thing that says is it's either activated or deactivated. So it like basically looks almost identical. So you have to really read it. Take your eyes off the screen to make sure you know what your heated steering wheel is doing. But that's it. That's the Quirk tour. So the question then becomes, what's next for the car? Now I already mentioned for the exhaust, which we'll go back and check out, I have the AWE Touring non-resonated, which is great. I love the quad tips. It looks super mean and aggressive. You can see AWE down there. I am going to order the resonator kit as we talked about. I also am going to finally replace this front lip because it's super chewed up. It's scratched up there. It's completely cracked up here, totally losing its sheen, and then scraped over here. I'm also considering side skirts. So leave it in the comments if I should get side skirts. And I like the Adro rear wing. That's got like the fangs. This one's okay, but let me know in the comments if I should get a new rear wing. I would also like to get laser lights just for the aesthetic, to be honest. And then I'd also like to swap out for anniversary roundels just to give a little bit more color to the car and a little bit more personality. And plus I think they look cool. So then the question always becomes, am I gonna keep the car? And the answer is, yeah, I think for the most part, it'll be paid off before the end of the year, which is great. I'm gonna love not having a car payment. That means we can work on getting my wife a new car. Am I going to keep it forever? Probably not. But for right now, with my life, what it is, this is the perfect balance. This is the perfect car. And even if I don't end up keeping it forever, whenever I do go to sell it, that doesn't make this thing any less perfect. This is still probably, in my opinion, the perfect balanced daily car. So that's what it's been like living with the M340i for the last 7 months, and we'll check back with you in another 5 months at the end of the year.